The cell was clean, bright, and utterly silent. Not that it mattered to Shawn Neller, who had been counting the perforations along the seamless white ceiling for the past 3 hours. He stopped at 642, mostly because he'd lost track when a faint humming started again, like it always did before a meal was delivered. The wall to his left shimmered slightly and a panel slid away, revealing a shallow compartment. Inside was a tray with a bowl of thick green paste and a glass of clear liquid that always tasted faintly of mint and metal. Shawn sat up on the cot, stretched his back, and muttered to himself, "Yay, space porridge again. Just what I wanted." He took the tray and sat cross-legged on the floor. The paste wasn't terrible, just boring. Like everything else. He'd been here wherever here was for 9 days, as far as he could tell. The aliens hadn't hurt him. They hadn't even really talked to him, except for one long decontamination session where a very tall, blue-skinned creature with 6 fingers had scanned him head to toe and declared in stilted English, "Pathogenic strain detected. Risk unacceptable. Isolation mandatory." And then they'd stuck him in this room. Shawn had been hiking in Utah when the ship landed. He hadn't even seen it coming. One moment, he was taking a selfie near a cliffside. The next, a beam of light, a strange humming, and then darkness. He'd woken up in this room with his backpack missing and no idea what was going on, except for the recurring announcement that played from the wall every morning. You are in compassionate quarantine. You carry a pathogen classified as high risk. You will receive nourishment, hydration, and environmental stability. Please remain calm. He finished the paste, wiped his mouth on his sleeve, and stood up. "All right," he said to the ceiling, "I've been calm. I've been obedient. I haven't coughed once since day 3. Can we maybe do something entertaining now?" Silence. "Hello." He waved at one of the corners. "TV? Books? A deck of cards? I'll take a stick and a rock at this point." Still nothing. Shawn walked to the wall and pressed his palm against it. It didn't react. He sighed and walked in tight circles for a while, then stopped suddenly and dropped to the floor. Push-ups, sit-ups, burpees. Anything to kill time. By the 50th push-up, he was sweating hard and panting. He lay back on the cool floor, staring at the ceiling again. "This is how I die," he muttered. Not from a deadly space flu, but from boredom. A soft chime echoed in the room, followed by a voice. It was the same voice that played the daily announcement, but this time it was speaking directly to him. "Your request has been noted. Clarify. What is entertainment?" Shawn sat up straight. "You're listening now?" Affirmative. He ran a hand through his messy hair and thought for a second. Entertainment is something to pass the time. Something that makes you laugh, or think, or feel. Stimulates the brain. Makes you feel alive. A pause. Specify format. Movies. Music. Games. Books. Stories. Anything like that. Processing request. The wall shimmered again. A small cube emerged from the wall, floated in mid-air, and projected a hologram. A strange, alien landscape appeared: gaseous skies, towering crystalline structures, creatures that looked like walking kelp stalks. Then it vanished. Was that supposed to be entertaining? Shawn asked. Test image. Stand by. The cube pulsed, then retracted into the wall. A new chime sounded. Your request for entertainment has been forwarded for cultural compatibility analysis. Estimated wait time, 21 hours. Shawn groaned and flopped onto the cot. Great. Just great. The next morning, instead of the usual green paste, the tray held a second item, a small device that looked like a flattened egg. Shawn picked it up cautiously. It blinked once and projected a screen in midair. A menu appeared, written in English. Select entertainment type. Visual stories, auditory rhythms, interactive challenges. He grinned. Now we're talking. He tapped visual stories. A list of alien titles scrolled by, incomprehensible strings of symbols. But then, at the bottom, a single line in English. Interstellar exchange, human preference pilot program. He tapped it. A short film began. It was crude, like someone had tried to recreate a human sitcom by studying surveillance footage. A man in a suit sat at a desk and made awkward jokes about gravity and protein synthesis. A laugh track played at random intervals. Shawn stared at it for a full minute before muttering, "That's not it." He exited the program and tried the interactive challenges option. The screen shifted to a grid of puzzles, most of which made no sense. Colored spheres floated in patterns that changed when he blinked. One game required him to rotate three-dimensional shapes in zero gravity. That one, at least, kept him busy for a few hours. Around dinner time, the wall shimmered again. This time, not a tray. A door. It slid open without a sound. Shawn stood up slowly. "Is this a test?" A voice replied. "You are cleared for supervised recreation. Remain within designated area. Do not attempt to access restricted zones." A tall alien stood waiting beyond the door. It had a narrow face, long limbs, and eyes like dark glass. It didn't speak, just turned and started walking. Shawn followed. They passed through a corridor lined with soft lights. The floor was warm under his bare feet, and the air smelled faintly like citrus. Eventually, they reached a large room filled with geometric structures that shimmered when touched. Another alien stood at a console at the far end, manipulating panels. "This is a cognitive stimulation chamber," the first alien said. "You may interact freely." Shawn walked over to a large spiral structure and tapped it. Lights rippled across its surface. A melody played. He touched it again, and a different note sounded. It was a music device. Primitive, but oddly satisfying. He spent the next hour trying to recreate the opening notes of Take On Me. He didn't quite get it, but it was better than staring at a wall. Later, back in his room, he lay on the cot and stared at the ceiling. "Okay," he said, "not bad. Still, could use some Netflix." The next few days passed in a blur. The aliens brought more games, more music devices, even a crude drawing pad that let him sketch by tracing his finger through floating dust particles. He drew a dog, then a mountain, then a comic about a human who escapes alien quarantine with a spoon and a lot of sarcasm. On day 14, he woke up with a sore throat and a fever. He reported it to the wall. "Symptom relapse," he said, requesting medical check. Within minutes, a drone arrived. It scanned him, took a blood sample, and left. An hour later, the voice returned. "Your immune response has reactivated. You are not contagious. Temporary symptoms. Rest is advised." Shawn curled up on the cot, shivering. He slept most of the day. When he woke, the music device was gone. So was the drawing pad. Only the green paste remained. He groaned. The door opened again the next day. This time, a different alien waited. Shorter, with pale skin and a soft voice. "I am Helix," it said. "You are being evaluated for social reintegration." "Social reintegration?" Shawn asked. "You mean I might not be locked in here forever?" "Correct. Your illness is now classified as manageable with caution. You will be introduced to controlled environments with other species." Shawn stood slowly. "What if I say no?" "Then you will remain in isolation." He thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay. Let's see what your version of a party looks like." Helix led into a new chamber. This one had a dome ceiling and soft grass underfoot. Several aliens stood in clusters, watching glowing orbs float overhead. When Shawn entered, they all turned. One stepped forward. It had a wide, flat head and eyes like a frog's. "You are the infected human," it said. Shawn raised a hand. "I prefer recovering human, but yeah, you are permitted here under supervision. Do not exhale forcefully. I'll try to keep the breathing to a minimum." The alien blinked slowly. "Humor. Interesting." The next hour was awkward. The alien spoke in clipped phrases, clearly uncomfortable. One asked him to describe what pizza was. Another wanted to know why humans wore shoes indoors. When he told them about action movies, they were confused. "You simulate violence for enjoyment?" "Not just violence," Shawn said. "There's plot, characters, drama, but also explosions." "Well, yeah. Explosions are awesome." Helix approached him as the event ended. "You are adapting well," it said. "We are considering your request for long-term integration." Shawn tilted his head. "Meaning, I get out of the cell permanently?" "Possibly. Continued cooperation and symptom monitoring required." Shawn exhaled slowly. "I can do that." He returned to his room that night, exhausted but hopeful. The wall shimmered again. A new menu appeared on the screen. "Select human entertainment. Films, music, comedy, documentaries," he smiled. "Now we're talking." The floor in the simulation dome was springy like gym matting, but with a faint undercurrent of static that tickled Shawn's toes. He'd been walking slow laps around the perimeter, tuning out the ambient hum of the place, when the projection menu reappeared midair this time without being summoned. The selections floated just above eye level, glowing softly in the filtered light. I didn't ask for anything yet," he said, pausing. Preemptive engagement protocol, said Helix, who stood nearby with a device shaped like a folded umbrella under one arm. Your engagement metrics were irregularly low during the last cycle. System adjusted. You guys track how interested I am? Behavioral drift is a known precursor to psychological destabilization. I'm not a lab rat. You are a quarantined mammal experiencing prolonged isolation in an alien environment. We are mitigating predictable outcomes. Shawn rubbed a hand over his chin, where he'd started to grow an uneven beard. Okay, yeah, fine. But maybe next time, let me choose when to be entertained. Noted. The projection dimmed slightly, allowing Shawn to browse. He hesitated over comedy, then tapped music. A second menu unfolded, offering a mix of Earth genres and a few alien options he couldn't decipher. He selected Jazz Human Archive sample, and a warm, brassy melody filled the dome. Helix's head tilted slightly. This is considered pleasurable? Yeah, it's expressive. Kinda chaotic, but in a good way. There is no discernible rhythmic cadence. That's why it works. It doesn't follow a rulebook. Helix didn't respond, just stared at the source of the sound like it might explode. Shawn wandered to a nearby bench-shaped structure and sat down. Any chance I can get something with strings next time? Like a guitar? Or even just rubber bands and a box? Why? Building stuff calms me down. You wish to construct instruments? Sure. Or whatever else I can manage. I used to fiddle with electronics back home. Made a radio out of a toaster once. That is a concerning conflation of functions. Worked great until the toast started playing weather reports. Helix made a brief gesture to the air. A small orb detached from the wall and floated towards Shawn. Inside it, pieces of synthetic material hovered in suspension. These are modular components. They adhere magnetically, safe for unsupervised use. Now we're talking. Shawn opened the orb, spreading the pieces across the bench. The materials were oddly pliant, somewhere between plastic and rubber, with embedded nodes that activated when pressed together. He twisted a few into a loose frame, then paused, frowning. These things don't have any tension. I need stretch. Something that resists a pull. Helix didn't move. You require elastic tensile material? Exactly. Specify parameters. Like something that stretches but snaps back. Rubber bands would be perfect. Or anything with springiness. Helix stood silent for a moment, then turned and walked away without explanation. The jazz track looped back to the beginning. Shawn kept assembling the frame anyway, humming softly. Time passed. He got 2 legs onto the structure before he realized he'd accidentally built a lopsided stool. He flipped it over and started again. Helix returned with a container that hissed as it opened. Inside were thin cords wrapped around spools. Shawn pulled one out. It had a dull gray sheen and resisted gently when tugged. Polyfiber tension lines, Helix said. Used in microgravity netting systems. They match your specifications. Shawn grinned. Perfect. He spent the next few hours threading the cords across the frame, tuning them by ear. The result wasn't a guitar, exactly, but more like a distorted harp. He plucked one of the lines and winced. Okay, that's not a C note. That's more like a C flat if you drop it down a well. Helix stepped closer. Is this functional? Not yet. But give me time. He tuned, adjusted, rebuilt a piece of the frame. By the time the dome lighting shifted to simulate evening, the thing actually played. Sort of. The tones were hollow but musical. Helix tapped something on its console, and a recording orb began hovering near Shawn's shoulder. We are archiving your creation for analysis. Knock yourself out. Later, back in his quarantine quarters, Shawn felt a faint ache behind his eyes. His head was warm. Not hot, but warmer than he liked. He lay down and stared at the same seamless ceiling that had become his sky. When the lights dimmed to mimic night, he finally whispered, "Hey, wall. I think I need another check." The wall didn't respond immediately. But a soft tone sounded a few minutes later, followed by a drone entering with a familiar scanning wand. The medical drone hovered, scanned his vitals, and beeped once. Then it released a small capsule onto the table near the cot. Supplemental hydration and immune stabilizer, came the automated voice. Consume within 6 minutes. He sat up and swallowed the capsule with a small gulp of water. The aftertaste was bitter and left a metallic tingle on his tongue. The next morning, his vision was still a bit fuzzy, and his limbs felt slow. Helix appeared at the doorway without explanation and watched him for a full minute. You are exhibiting atypical thermoregulation. I'm fine. Just didn't sleep well. Your blood oxygen saturation is reduced by 3%. That's like one floor of stairs. Not exactly a crisis. Helix stepped forward and held up a small pulse reader. Please confirm subjective condition. Shawn took a breath. I feel tired. A little foggy. Like I'm walking through soup. You will be monitored more frequently. Can I still go to the dome? Helix didn't answer right away. Eventually, limited access. No group interaction. Fantastic. He returned to the dome later, but this time the space was empty. No aliens, no projection menus. Just the harp thing he'd built, standing where he'd left it. He sat down and plucked a few notes. They sounded clearer than before. Maybe the structure had settled. He played a slow, wandering melody, letting the notes fill the chamber. Halfway through, he realized he wasn't alone. A new alien stood near the entrance, watching without speaking. Shawn stopped. You here to tell me I'm too contagious to play music now? The alien's skin was mottled orange and silver, with eyes that blinked vertically. It walked forward, slow and deliberate. I am Varn, it said. You're not with medical. No security? No, great. I love a good mystery. I monitor interspecies adaptation. You are the first human to request creative implements despite limited social stimuli. Yeah, well, I don't do well with sitting still. Varn studied the harp. You constructed this using non-instructional methods. Trial and error. Mostly error. Varn tilted its head. Your species compensates for uncertainty with exploration. Only way to figure things out. And when you fail, you try again. Or you lie down and scream into a pillow. Depends on the day. Varn turned and walked slowly around the instrument. Your cognitive design favors improvisational resilience. It is. Disordered. Thanks. That was not an insult. Shawn plucked another note. You ever build something just to see if you can? No. My function is observational. Maybe you should try it sometime. Varn didn't answer. Instead, it reached out and touched one of the strings. The note that rang out was sharp, slightly off pitch. Shawn grinned. There you go. First step into chaos. The following day, Shawn's fever returned. He woke up sweating, his throat dry and raw. The lights in his room adjusted automatically when he sat up. Wall, he rasped. I need help again. A new voice responded cooler, firmer. Medical override engaged. Please remain stationary. 2 drones arrived within minutes. One scanned his lungs with a soft whirring sound, while the other pressed a patch against his arm. A chill seeped into his skin, followed by a wave of nausea. You are experiencing a cytokine flare, said the voice. Immune regulation is underway. Shawn leaned back, dizzy. I thought I was past this. The pathogen is not fully eradicated. Your body encodes an adaptive. I don't want the science. Just tell me if I'm dying. Mortality probability remains low. Discomfort will persist for 8 to 14 hours. Lovely. They left him shivering, a thermal blanket draped over his lower half. He drifted in and out of sleep, dreams flickering with upside-down cities and harp music played underwater. When he finally opened his eyes again, the room was darker. A figure stood at the door. It was Varn. I was told you are experiencing organ stress, it said. Yeah, well, my body's staging a protest. You created resonance despite internal dysfunction. Shawn coughed into his elbow. The harp. Yes. I was bored. Boredom is not among the motivations we anticipated. We're good at surprises. Varn stepped closer. You are not a threat. Thanks for the late memo. You are unpredictable, but not dangerous. Shawn blinked slowly. I'll take that as a compliment. Varn moved to the wall and touched a panel. A soft chime sounded. What did you just do? Shawn asked. A request. For what? To extend your environmental clearance. The dome is now your primary habitat. Shawn propped himself on one elbow. They're letting me out of the box. Temporarily. Condition-based. He let his head fall back against the pillow. Then I better get better fast. Varn didn't reply. It simply nodded once and left. Shawn stared at the ceiling, a faint grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. He was still stuck. Still sick. Still far from home. But now he had an audience. Shawn sat hunched on a low, molded bench in the dome, fiddling with the strings of the instrument he'd built. His fingertips were raw, but he didn't care. The dome lights were brighter than usual, mimicking a late afternoon glow. And though he was still weak from the flare-up, he refused to stay in the quarantine room another minute longer than necessary. He'd been cleared for extended access that morning, so he'd come straight here, dragging the harp-like structure to a better acoustic spot near the center. He adjusted one of the cords, then plucked it. Still off. He exhaled and leaned back, rubbing his temples. "You're using tension incorrectly," said a voice behind him, not Helix, not Varn. This one was higher-pitched, with a crispness that suggested someone either important or very tired of being ignored. He turned. The alien approaching had a compact build and wore a thin band of metallic weave around its upper arms. Its skin was a muted lavender, almost gray, and its eyes were a translucent green that didn't blink in sync. "You know music now?" Shawn asked. "I know engineering," it replied. "You've stretched the chords unevenly. That's why the sound drifts. What's your name?" "Reth. You here to fix my playing, or just criticize it?" "I'm here because I was instructed to observe your adaptive constructions. I did not expect them to be so imprecise." Shawn gestured to the instrument. "I didn't exactly go to alien music school." Reth knelt beside the frame and ran its fingers along the chords. "The frame is too rigid. You're forcing elasticity into something designed to resist movement. I made it from whatever Helix let me have. You repurposed internal support struts from a containment cradle. They're designed to keep volatile organisms from shifting during transport." Shawn squinted. "That explains the weird echo. It hums when I sneeze near it." Reth tapped one of the struts and watched it vibrate. "You're improvising with incompatible materials and producing something new. That's inefficient. But interesting. Welcome to being human." Reth stood again, studying Shawn's face. "Your condition has stabilized?" "More or less. I still feel like I ran uphill through mud, but I'm upright. Your immune system is generating adaptive sequences. That shouldn't be possible without targeted intervention. Guess my body didn't get the memo. Or it simply doesn't follow protocol." Shawn laughed once, wincing at the tightness in his ribs. "We're not big on protocol when it comes to survival." Reth tilted its head. "Your species solves problems through error." "That's inefficient too. It works. Not always. But often enough to be a problem for people who like tidy systems." Reth didn't answer. It walked a slow circle around the instrument, then stopped across from him. "You were not trained for isolation. You have no conditioning. Yet you remain psychologically stable." Shawn leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Barely. I talk to inanimate objects. I dream about cereal. Sometimes I pretend the wall has a personality. And despite that, you build. Because it's that or go numb." Reth looked at him for a long moment. Then, without warning, it sat down cross-legged. "Show me how to play it." Shawn blinked. "You want to learn? I want to understand what your brain finds satisfying about this." He slid the whole thing closer, then pointed to the chords. "Each one responds to pressure and angle. You don't pluck more like twist and lift. Try this one." Reth followed his instructions, fingers moving with calculated delicacy. The note that rang out was sharp, but close to what Shawn had intended. "Good," he said. "Now change the angle." They spent the next 20 minutes coaxing strange, echoing sounds from the instrument. The tones clashed, then harmonized, then drifted again. Reth didn't speak much, but its body language softened, movements less mechanical. Eventually, the alien set its hands in its lap. "This is not efficient." "Nope, but it is. Engaging. There you go. That's the point." Reth stood again, glancing at the dome ceiling. "Your clearance ends in 15 minutes. You should return to rest." "I will. Just wanted to hear it once more." Reth walked to the exit, then hesitated. "You're not like the others we've studied." "Thanks. I think. We believed you were fragile. Most of us are. Until we're not." That night, Shawn lay in his cot, staring at the ceiling. The fever hadn't come back, but his throat was tight, and his chest felt like someone had stuffed cotton into it. He coughed softly, not painful, just dry, and reached for the water beside the bed. The room was quiet. He didn't sleep much. By the next morning, the dome had changed. It smelled faintly like ozone, and the lighting had been adjusted to a soft indigo hue. His instrument had been placed on a low platform, and beside it stood a new structure, a tripod with a suspended metallic disc. Curious, he tapped the disc. It rang like a bell, clear and sustained. Helix entered a few moments later, holding a translucent panel. "You've been cleared for cultural demonstration," it said. Shawn blinked. "Cultural what now?" "Several observers will arrive shortly." "You are to demonstrate human creative behavior." "I'm not a show pony." "You are a representative of an emerging priority species." "Well, that's new." Your capacity for recovery and improvisation has altered your classification. You are now listed as a resilience anomalous specimen. That sounds flattering and terrifying. You will perform as you did yesterday. I wasn't performing. I was just killing time. That is the distinction. Aliens began to enter the dome. Not many, perhaps 6 or 7, but each stood at a respectful distance, forming a semicircle. Reth was among them, and so was Varn. There were a few others Shawn didn't recognize, including one with no visible mouth and skin that shimmered like oil on water. Shawn sat beside the instrument and exhaled. His hands trembled slightly, so he shook them out. No one spoke. He began slowly, drawing out long, low notes. Then he shifted into the pattern he and Reth had found the day before. The dome's acoustics carried the sound upward, where it bounced and returned in softened echoes. He added in the disc, tapping it with his knuckles. The sound layered itself, imperfect but strangely balanced. When he finished, no one clapped. But they didn't leave, either. Helix stepped forward. Your demonstration is complete. Cool. Do I get a cookie? You are cleared for full environmental integration. Quarantine status lifted. Shawn blinked. Wait, that's it. Medical evaluation confirms pathogen neutralization. You are no longer a transmission vector. Observation will continue, but confinement is no longer required. He stood slowly. So I can go wherever? Within designated sectors. You are restricted from transport vessels and command modules, but your movement is otherwise unrestricted. Shawn ran a hand through his hair. I thought I'd be stuck in that room forever. You taught us something unexpected. About music? About recovery. He looked at the audience, most of whom had begun to leave. Only Reth remained, standing beside the instrument. You're free to return whenever you wish, it said. I built the thing to stop myself from unraveling. And in doing so, you created cohesion. Shawn stepped down from the platform. So what now? You gonna study more humans? We have enough data for now, but we will observe. He nodded. Then I guess I'll find out what the rest of this place looks like. You'll need orientation. Great. Do I get a lanyard? That is negotiable. Together, they stepped out into the corridor, leaving the dome and its strange melodies behind.